You might hear the name Endangered Alphabets and think,
Oh, they're just working to revitalize scripts that have been driven out of use.
but that's not really entirely the case. There are a lot of scripts that Endangered Alphabets works with that are emerging as well. These are scripts that have been created relatively recently, often to reinforce a cultural identity, and there are tons of examples like this. You've got scripts like Adlan, Nko, Cherokee, and Osage that have all been created for these specific reasons. But how do you actually make this happen? What actually goes into creating a script? Well, today we're going to take a look at one of the newest scripts to Endangered Alphabets and a recently created script, Gʋlse. Gʋlse is a newly formed script created to represent the Gur languages of the Sahelian and the savanna areas of West Africa. And this script was basically created as a continuation of how the Gur writing systems might have looked if the region hadn't been colonized.
Colonizers often forcibly replaced the writing systems of the area, which of course had their own histories and cultures behind it.
And so the creators of the Gʋlse script took inspiration from the Kassena people of Ghana and Burkina Faso. The Kassena people are famous for their logograms, which are these symbols representing these big ideas like wealth and peace and devotion. And these symbols were actually traditionally painted on the sides of their houses. So we have our starting point, the symbols from the Kassena culture. Where do we go from here? For lots of scripts, it's how the language sounds. We want to create a writing system that can represent the actual sounds of our language.
Maybe you've got a language with a pretty small set of sounds that you can use.
It might be useful then to use a syllabary, which basically uses the symbols in order to represent larger syllables.
The sort of beats in your language.
If you've got a wider use of sounds in your inventory, maybe you want to use an alphabet. This basically allows you to represent all of the consonants and vowels, and it gives you a little bit more granular detail. There is a third type of writing system called the logographic writing system. In this system, you have symbols representing entire words. These are a bit less common in new scripts, and there's a good reason for this. Generally, when you have a logographic system, you need to have thousands upon thousands of characters, and it takes oftentimes years to learn the script. And so if you're trying to revitalize a language or preserve a culture, you're not going to want your learners to have to spend years learning your system. And so for Gʋlse, given its extensive inventory of sounds, the creators chose to make it an alphabetic script. So we've got our consonants and vowels represented, but that might not be quite enough. Many languages use stuff like tone,
which is the relative pitch in your language.
Nasality,
which is when you push air out of your nose instead of out of your mouth when speaking.
And stress to determine meaning. The Gur languages have nasal vowels, and they've typically got at least 2 tones as well. Do we want to indicate this in our script? Well, the creators of Gʋlse chose to represent nasality with this little dot here. If you see this little dot, an ah sound becomes an on sound. But as for tone, they chose not to include it in their script, which is fine. You don't have to spell everything out for your reader. I mean, just look at the English word kernel.
I mean, look at that.
The creators of Gʋlse knew that for the vast majority of the time, their readers were going to be able to tell what the tones are going to be. And with all of that, you are all set to get your script out there. In the case of Gʋlse, it is just starting to be put out. It's currently being used to teach the Gur languages of Kassem and More, but there's no telling where it'll go. When I was corresponding with one of the creators, he said he would love to see the script spread naturally, as writing systems often do. But for now, they're just trying to make it accessible in classrooms, on computers, and even in apps. And obviously, my description of Gʋlse and the creation of writing systems in general has been completely simplified. There is tons more work that goes into this process. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more about that kind of work, there are some links in the description that you can check out. A huge thank you goes out to Wenitte Apiou, one of the creators of Gʋlse, for his help on this video. It was incredibly valuable, so thank you so much. Now, I assume that you all have been inspired to create your own writing systems, so I will leave you to do so. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.